Surely something comes to mind when I ask you to think about what have you done recently to help combat the growing environmental issues in our world? Something comes to mind, right? Maybe you recycled your plastic Starbucks cup this morning, or you brought your own reusable bag to the grocery store. And there's so many great things that we do, but while those things are great, there's something bigger we need to focus on. It's clear that one of the main contributors to our depleting climate is the extensive outpour of carbon emissions into the air we breathe every day, and that comes directly from the cars we drive every day. We must take a look at the effects that these human habits have on our world in order to work towards a better quality of life for everything on this planet. Let's discuss some of the things about sustainable energy and how we can work towards that for our future. The effect that greenhouse gases has experienced from carbon emissions, how certain regions are disproportionately affected in the United States, and how the switch from gasoline powered vehicles could be the change we need for a healthier planet. As someone who loves the planet and hates to see the harm that's being done, I have found my passion for this issue, and I'm determined to give you the facts on how working towards these changes can ensure a better future for all of us. From the moment I saw one in person, I knew it would be my dream car, a Tesla. Not only are they stylish, fast, and really just cool cars, they're extremely efficient and they're great for the environment. It's really a win-win. First, let's talk about gasoline powered vehicles' effect on greenhouse gases, the first point of my speech. Did you know that the most prominent source of carbon emissions in the United States is directly from transportation? Well, according to an undated article from Cultura, 29% of the carbon footprint in the United States is directly related to transportation. Gasoline specifically makes up 22% of the transportation related greenhouse gases. The main greenhouse gas that harmfully contributes to our Earth's changing climate is carbon dioxide, which comes from the exhaust pipe of your car. This waste product can be directly related to the increasing natural disasters that have hit many areas of our planet, which directly resulted in over $306 billion in damage in the United States in 2017 alone, according to an article from Cultura. CO2 is a prime example of how something so close to us can be so unknowingly harmful, considering all living organisms have it as a waste product, but in excess, it's toxic. There are many other toxic pollutants present in oil that are very harmful when they are burned and released into the atmosphere. Carbon monoxide, methane, and other smog causing compounds are just a few of the major carcinogens that have been found to pose a threat to our health. According to an undated article from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, about 1.7 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions are burned into the atmosphere each year from highway vehicles. So we know that our everyday vehicles directly contribute to the burning of harmful gases. But have you thought about the steps taken in order to acquire this liquid fluid and fuel and how that can have unequal effects on certain people and regions of the world? Well, the extraction process is extremely toxic, and there's many downsides, like the harm that it does on the environment and the disproportionate effects it has on people of color specifically. This extensive process carried out in order to obtain liquid oil fuel is dangerous and time consuming. I'm not going to go into the details of how this process is completed, but I will tell you some of the repercussions that comes along with it. According to a 2019 article from the Wilderness Society, the places where drilling happens tends to be pristine natural environments that get destroyed due to oil companies coming in and just taking over. In addition to these pristine environments being hindered, there are many regions where people of color endure toxic fumes into the air they breathe thanks to the drilling done in neighboring town. I'm going to share another thing with you. Here's just a few images of examples of where the drilling is done. You can see that in this top left image, it's directly in, looks like a countryside and could just be a town right around the corner. Here we are seeing it be done in the middle of an ocean, which can be really risky because it causes many spills that can deplete our marine life and just overall not good for the environment. A study from Cultura found that areas heavily populated with people of color are said to breathe in 66% more air pollution from cars and trucks than regions with white individuals. This is absolutely ridiculous. Why are these areas being targeted more? This is something we really need to discuss. In 2019, the Wilderness Society also stated that the US, there are over 12 million citizens that live less than half a mile from oil and gas factories. Think about how close that is to your home and how that would not be something you'd want to live with every day. There's so many health risks associated with this, the increased exposure that they get from these toxic pollutants. A 2019 study from the Wilderness Society stated that the specific drilling method of fracking has been suggested to contaminate drinking water sources and potentially produce cancer causing agents in the water of these local communities. The vehicle emissions also play a direct role in our health because they increase the risk for adolescents to have depression and anxiety. Now that we have covered some of the details of how harmful gasoline powered vehicles are to our planet, let's get into some of the ways we can combat these issues together. So, as I stated earlier, we can switch to battery powered vehicles. By making the switch, we could change the climate astronomically so quickly. It just is really a joint effort. Oil is not a reusable resource, whereas battery operated vehicles do a fantastic job at recycling and reusing. A Cultura article found that battery operated vehicles are often constructed from recycled materials that can last up to 400,000 miles and counting as research is being done on this potential miracle for our planet. While reading an article from Cultura, something that stood out to me was a quote that said, "Gasoline will always be a polluting fossil fuel that is burned once and gone forever." That's something to think about. Electric vehicles are increasingly becoming cheaper also than the gasoline powered vehicles on the market. Competition has increased due to companies like Nissan and Hyundai and Tesla who have put out these electric vehicles like the Leaf and the Ionic Electric that are priced around $30,000, which is extremely affordable in our society today. Considering the increase in reliability and decrease in maintenance needed for these cars, it's essentially like you're getting two or three cars for the price of one. One company that has really made it their mission to work towards sustainable energy is Tesla. As I mentioned earlier, my dream car has been a Tesla for quite some time. Kind of started as a fascination with the look of the car and then quickly shifted to a love for the battery powered aspect of it, how sustainable it was and good for the environment. My main priority for a car changed from looks and status to sustainability and helping the environment in any way that I can. According to a 2019 report from Tesla, their impact report, the 550,000 vehicles that they have sold has resulted in saving over 4 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. That is insane. I want to show you one more video that I have.
Here's a question. How much cleaner are battery electric cars compared to gasoline-powered cars? To find out, the Union of Concerned Scientists studied the total global warming emissions of each vehicle throughout every stage of its life, from manufacturing to driving to disposal. And there's a big difference. Both cars start out on the assembly line with similar parts made of raw materials like steel. Here's a question. How much to disposal? And there's a big difference. Both cars start out on the assembly line with similar parts made of raw materials like steel and aluminum. For a gasoline car, this manufacturing and assembling stage generates about 7 tons of emissions. Battery electric cars, meanwhile, are powered by, you guessed it, a large battery. This requires more energy and materials to produce for an 84-mile range battery electric car, bringing its emissions tally up to roughly 8 tons. But what happens when they hit the road? Gas powered cars produce pollution with every gallon of gas they burn, with even more emissions coming from extracting, refining, and transporting the fuel to gas stations.
That's discussing the oil
Electric cars, on the other
process.
hand, run on electricity, which can be much cleaner than gasoline, depending on how the electricity is made.
Recyclable
Two-thirds of
energy.
Americans live in regions where charging an electric car produces fewer global warming emissions than driving even a 50-mile-per-gallon gasoline car. By the end of their lives, the average gas car will rack up 57 tons of global warming emissions, compared to 28 tons for a battery electric car. Disposing and recycling each car adds less than 1 ton of emissions. And remember that electric car battery? It can be recycled or reused. In the final tally, an 84-mile range battery electric car cuts global warming emissions by more than 50% compared with a similar sized gas-powered car, making up for the battery's manufacturing emissions within 1 year of driving. And as the country adds more and more renewable sources of electricity, driving electric will get even better. So there you have it.
So that's just a really good way to show even more detail on how the statistics I mentioned earlier can prove to be effective for the future of our environment. So it's comforting to know that even with all the harm that we've done from the current method of transportation, there's still a better option that's rapidly advancing and we still have time, but not much. So that's why I'm talking to you about this issue now. Now that you know a little bit more about how our climate is affected by gasoline powered vehicles every day and how certain areas of the world are unjustly exposed to the effects, what will you do next to help combat our changing climate and work towards sustainable energy for the future? Thank you.